Hey guys, it's Megan, and in today's video, I'll be showing you 10 super easy doodle ideas that anyone can do. This is the perfect way to keep yourself busy when you're bored. And speaking of things that you can do when you're bored, I want to give a huge thank you to today's video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for creative and curious people. They have classes on all sorts of topics, like illustration, graphic design, photography, animation, and more. Skillshare classes are a great way to keep yourself occupied when you're stuck at home. I just took a class called How to Create a Cohesive Instagram Feed using Adobe Lightroom by Dale McManus. The class isn't super related to this video, but if you've seen my Instagram, you know I need all the help I can get. And one of the coolest things that I learned from this class is how to make your own preset in Lightroom. In the class, he goes through what settings to change to get the specific look and color scheme that you want, and it was actually super helpful. The best part is that the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free 2-month trial of Skillshare Premium to explore your creativity. So with all that out of the way, let's just get into the video. I used a variety of supplies for the doodles in this video, but anything that you have at home will work. As long as you have some paper, something with a thinner tip like a pen or fine liner, and something with a little bit of a thicker tip like a Sharpie, then you're all set. Honestly, most of these are just really simple patterns, and they might have specific names, but if they do, I have no idea what they are. But for the first doodle, start by drawing a dot in the center of your paper, and draw a wavy line going from the dot all the way to the edge of the paper. Repeat this again and again and again until your paper looks something like this. To create a sort of 3D effect, draw a curved line in one of the sections. Draw another curved line on top of that, and repeat this going the whole way up the section. And that's basically it. Just keep drawing those curved shapes in each section, starting at the dot we drew in the first step and radiating out to the edge of the paper. And when you're done, you should have something that looks like this. The second idea is kind of similar to the first one. I'm just going to call it a clover field because that's kind of what it reminds me of. Start by drawing 3 or 4 teardrop shapes that connect at the top. It's kind of like drawing a flower but with no center. Draw another teardrop shape inside of each petal. Then keep drawing more teardrop shapes outside of each petal and just keep going around pretty much until you feel like stopping. Here's one that I did with 4 petals. You do the exact same thing. Draw 4 teardrop shapes that meet at the center, draw another small teardrop shape inside each one, and then add more of these teardrop shapes until you want to stop. Keep drawing more of these flower clover things until there's no more room on the paper. To fill up any white space in the background, we can just do more of those teardrop shapes. I like to start in the corner of one of the shapes that I already drew, just like this. And here's what the page should look like when you're done. Now let's move on to something a little more recognizable, but still pretty easy to draw. Use a pen or a fine tip marker to draw a circle anywhere on the page. Fill in this larger circle with a bunch of smaller circles. You don't really have to draw each little circle individually. You could just make a bunch of swirls like this. Next, use a marker with a larger tip to create 5 or 6 petals. Draw a line coming out from the center of the flower that goes up, squiggles a little bit, then goes back down again. Repeat this a few more times until you have a shape that somewhat resembles a flower. You can make your flower larger and give it more dimension by adding another layer or 2 of petals. Don't worry too much about it being perfect. This style is really forgiving. Once you've drawn all of your petals, go back with the thinner pen or marker and draw lines inside of each one. Just do this for every single petal and that's it. You can stick with one flower or do a whole bunch like I did. This next doodle is another flower. This is actually one that my mom taught me when I was little. The first step is optional, but I decided to make these a little more modern by drawing random blobs with my Crayola Super Tip markers all over the page. For the actual flowers, start by drawing a small circle for the center of the flower. Then draw a few small petals around the circle that kind of overlap each other. Keep going around, doing more layers of these small petals until the flower is about half the size that you want it to be. Now we're going to add more petals, but this time they'll be a little bit larger. Just keep going around and around, making the last layer of petals the largest. Then I just repeated this for every single flower. If your flower is a little bit bigger than the blobs that you drew, you can always go back and fill in the space with more marker. But here's how my finished drawing turned out. This next one might just be my favorite from the whole video. These are kind of supposed to look like mountains. First, use a thicker marker to draw slightly wavy triangle shapes. Start at the bottom of the page and make your way up, stopping before you get to the top. Use your thicker marker again to draw more slightly wavy lines that divide each mountain in half. Decide which side of the mountains you want to be darker and which sides you want to be lighter. I made the left side darker and the right side lighter. For the darker side, use your thinner pen or marker to draw a few random lines. Fill each section you've created with lines that are pretty close together. I tried to make the lines go slightly different directions. For the lighter side, do the same thing, dividing it into a few different sections, but this time, make the lines in each section a little farther apart to make it look lighter. Continue this for each mountain, making one side darker by drawing the lines closer together, and one side lighter by drawing the lines farther apart. In the end, you should have something like this. This next one is something I used to do all the time. It's probably one of the easiest things ever. Start with your wider marker and draw a bunch of curvy lines that look like they're dripping down the page. I don't really have the best way to explain this, but you can pause the video here if you need a reference. Using your thinner marker or pen again, draw more drips, this time inside of the larger ones that we just drew. These lines kind of trace the inside of each drip. Keep doing this until you've filled in each one. I didn't think the first lines I drew were thick enough, so I went back over them at the end. And here's how the finished doodle turned out. Idea number 7, I'm gonna call this one wagon wheels because that's what it kind of looks like to me. This is probably the easiest out of all of them. Just draw a circle anywhere on the page. Mark a dot in the center of the circle, and draw lines that go from the dot to the edge of the circle. And that's all there is to it. Just keep drawing more of these wagon wheels until you fill up the page. If you start to run out of room to draw the circles, you can draw them so that they look like they're going behind the other ones. Do the same thing, drawing a dot in the center with lines radiating out from it. And when you're done, you should be left with something like this. This next pattern is one that I sort of made up. It's really abstract and it's really hard to mess up. First, draw a bunch of small, random shapes on the page. They can be circles, triangles, squares, blobs, whatever. Then, use your marker to draw one long, swirly line that weaves all over the page, making sure to avoid the shapes that you drew. It's kind of like a maze, and the shapes are the obstacles that you have to go around. When you're done, your page should look like this. This is the one where my Sharpie decided to die, so that's great. First, draw a bunch of wavy lines going horizontally across the page. The lines can go the whole way across, or they can stop halfway and overlap with another half of a line. Once all the lines are drawn, you're basically going to fill them up with rainbows. I did a pattern of them, going from a normal rainbow to an upside down one, and kept this pattern going across, making sure to stay inside the lines. Then go down to the next section and do the same thing. I tried to stagger the rainbows a bit if that makes sense, so they weren't all right on top of each other. Just keep doing this in each section until you have something that looks like this. And the last idea is these weird blob looking things. It kind of looks like a reversed cow print or something. First, draw a bunch of random blobs on your page. Honestly, it actually does kind of look like a cow print. Next, fill in each blob with more smaller blob shapes. That's the best way I can describe it. I told you these were easy. I feel like you can kind of just see what I did. You could stop here, which I definitely should have, or you can color in the background. I liked it a lot better before I colored in the background, but it was a little bit too late, so I just kept going. And here's how the finished page turned out. So that's everything for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to let me know which drawing was your favorite for a shout out in my next video. And if you try any of these, make sure to tag me on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. They are all at WellerMegs. And don't forget that the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free 2-month trial of Skillshare Premium. My merch, my website, and all of my social media will be linked down below. I love you guys so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you guys later. Bye!